Hello beautiful people, my name is Flame Bros. I'm a music producer and also a brother poultry farmer. In today's video, I want to talk about housing. Do you know that housing is the first step to a successful poultry farm? Yes, let's get right into it. First of all, I want to show you guys most of the housing structure, a skeletal structure of how it looks like, spot out the mistakes a lot of people are making and show you the right things that needs to be done. So let's get right on it. Meanwhile, there's no rule of thumb of how a poultry house is supposed to look like. So the basic thing there is that you need to make sure that you have proper aeration inside the poultry pen. When I mean proper aeration, proper means whereby there's enough ventilation going inside of the pen. You know, chicks are going to be merged in a particular space since you're either using a deep litter system or a cage system. So you need to make sure there's enough airflow inside of the poultry pen. So any way you want to build your structure, you need to make sure that one, there's enough airflow, especially when you're doing farming in Africa. You know, in other parts of the world where they have the winter and the summer period, they do their housing in such a way whereby they can use AC and cover the walls, the side walls, so that they can use AC and heaters depending on the time of the year. But here in Africa, where most of the times of the year the weather is usually warm and hot, and even if it's cold, it doesn't get too cold. So you need to make sure that you build your poultry pen in such a way that you have enough ventilation. So first of all, I'll start with this format. In this roofing structure format I'm showing you here, you make sure that your nets are high. I know this time of the year, we are in the time of the year whereby a lot of people are complaining of heat, that their birds are having heat stress and all of those stuff. If your poultry pen is built in a proper way, I think the heat issue will be cut down to a huge extent. Let's say about 50 to 60% of the heat issues will be cut down. So when you're building your poultry pen, you need to make sure, if you're using the side walls, if you're doing the deep litter system, you need to make sure that your side walls are not more than 2 feet. Your side walls should not be more than 2 feet from the ground level to the top level where the wire mesh should be starting off. So let's take, for instance, this is our ground level. So the walls should not be above 2 feet. Then the whole of this top should now be your wire mesh, either using a wide hole or a barbed wire kind of net, so that there's enough airflow. I will recommend the limited number of heights for your poultry pen should not be nothing less than 7 feet. 7 feet, I'm talking from this floor level to this level, should not be lesser than 7 feet, because if it's lesser than 7 feet, there's every tendency that when the heat hits on this roof, it's going to affect the birds. But if it's higher, like above 7 feet or more, the level of heat from the roof will be limited. And when you're doing your roofing, you must make sure that the sides, you have enough airspace from the sides and of about 4 feet or more. So in the situation whereby you have from this level to this level about 5 feet, that means there's more air flowing from the sides. This is the length of the matter don't finish. This is the length of the poultry pen. You must make sure that it's built in such a way whereby the sun is rising from this end and setting from this end. The sun is rising from this end and setting on this end, so that when you build a wall, a total blockage on the wall here, the sun rays does not get into the pen, and even when it's setting, it doesn't still go into the pen, so that this other end, where is the more of the length part, you still have aeration inside of it. So let's go back to this house roofing structure. There are different roofing patterns that people do in poultry housing. You either use this style. This style is more very common in those that are doing deep litter system. For those that are doing more of cage system for layer birds, and even for also broiler birds, they like doing this kind of aeration pattern whereby they still have some space at the rooftop where there's some air going out, some ventilation going out in some point, because the cage system, the birds are more packed in a very close space. So you need to make sure that they have a wide range of air flowing inside of it. And you're doing a cage poultry pen, you must make sure that you don't have any side walls. Let it just be all net all through, so that they have enough air flowing in and out. Even from the top, there's some air flowing out, so that it will help them for ventilation, so that your birds will not have issues of heat. Now in the situation whereby you are building a poultry pen on a wall, like this stuff. Let's say for instance, this is the wall. This is a very wrong way of building, and building it at this point. I have a neighbor of mine that is having issues in her farm right now because she built her pen on the fence. So there's no ventilation coming from this part of the pen. And the funny part is that this part of the pen where the wall is more of the length part. So the breadth, which is just only this space, is not having the beds are not having enough erosion. And somehow I also noticed that her structure is more deep inside. That is, the floor outside is around this level. So the beds are not even having enough ventilation inside because the wall is even more than 2 feet. So when your side walls is above 2 feet, there's every tendency that the beds inside might not have enough ventilation. So in this case, if you have a wall at this point, if you're raising your roof and having some airflow from behind, it will also help your beds to have ventilation from behind. Although this pattern at some point is not really safe. So if you are doing something like this, you need to make sure you have some burglary proof inside before the wire mesh is covered inside, for security reasons, so that you have that burglary proof, because you don't know what is happening outside the fence. So you make sure that you have some burglary proof and extend the roofing so that there's some erosion coming from outside, so that there's some erosion flowing from outside at the top that will also help them down here. So when you're putting on your structure, you need to put these things into consideration, because if there's any mistake in your housing, it's going to affect the productivity of your farm. It's going to affect the way your beds grow. If you are running a layers farm, it's going to affect the way your beds lay. So another thing again, for small scale farmers that are doing rearing their beds in a cage format. Let's say for instance this is the cage. If you're building your cage, there's one mistake I made when I started out, of which I will not allow any upcoming poultry farmer to make the same mistake. Let's say for instance this is a cage. You just try to manage my rough sketch. This is a rough sketch of a simple, let's say 4x8 cage. So when you have this entrance, the door where the birds are coming in through, you need to make sure that you don't run your nets all through at the front. The reasons why, because if you run all through, this edge where the net is lapping with the down floor is going to be having your wood shaving and your sawdust escaping from this point. And whenever you open the door, some of the birds might tend to fall out. So you make sure that you have a wood around, let's say about 3 or 5 centimeter round the floor level. See the way I did it? Round the floor level. Run a wood covering round the floor level. Even at this door entrance, let your doors be always opening out. At this door level, have about 5 centimeter or 3 centimeter of wood still running inside of the poultry cage round. And make sure that if you are doing a cage system like this, you are building your cage in a place whereby there's some level of shade, maybe 3 shades or stuff like that. It's going to really help you when it comes to heat, when you have heat issues. The same thing when you're running a big or a small scale or medium scale poultry farm. When you're having a poultry farm, I'll encourage every poultry farmer to have some trees planted around their farm or around their pen, because these trees also help for ventilation. For instance, like my own farm, the way my farm is positioned, I have some trees planted behind, I have some plantains and some other crops that are being planted behind and around it. So these crops also help for ventilation. Whenever there's heat, any little wave of wind that comes through, those trees and those plants help to now circulate it more. It also helps to magnify the wind. So when you're having a pen and all through around your pen there's no tree, there's nothing around, it will really affect your birds, especially when there's heat, when we are in times of the day when the weather is really hot. So but if you have trees planted around, at least simple trees like plantain or banana, these things will also help to magnify the flow of wind around your poultry pen. So I encourage every farmer, when you're building your poultry pen, you try to make sure that you put all these points I've just noted out into consideration. And if you're not sure about the processing and steps you're doing, you can try contacting a very experienced farmer around your neighborhood. But always bear in mind that your floor level, if you're doing a deep lister system, the floor level should not be more than 2 feet, because if it's more than 2 feet, I see a lot of farmers make the same mistake. If it's above 2 feet, it's going to affect your birds when there's heat. And when you're building your poultry pen, for instance, maybe you're doing a poultry pen of 8x16, you make sure that the length is 16 feet and the breadth should be 8 feet. So that let the length always be longer than the breadth, so that when so that when there's a need for ventilation, the length area will be where more of this ventilation will come in, because if the breadth is too big, there's every tendency that air will not get to the middle part of the pen. So when you're building your poultry pen, you need to make sure that it's more longer in length than the breadth, so that there will be more ventilation coming from the side walls that will get to even the middle part of the pen. For instance, maybe if this is our breadth of the farm, the length should be much more longer, about ×3 of this, so that ventilation can always get to this middle part of the pen, so that the birds will get more proper ventilation. Because if your birds are not properly ventilated, they'll always be having heat issues, and when they have heat issues, the tendency of them to grow very well will be very slim, and even your laying birds will not be able to lay properly, to affect them, and you might be having mortality along the line. So in order not to be having these losses, make sure that you put these points into consideration, and make sure that you have your pen built in such a way that there's more air ratio inside of it. You watching this video, I know at this point you like what you're saying. I would like you to just smash the like button, and if you're new to this channel, please do well to subscribe to grow this platform, so that other people will get to watch this video and enjoy and get to use these information that I've just passed through to you. So I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.